The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Monday, October 22nd, and by the way, I am told that this is our 222nd live show. So the 222nd live show on the 22nd of October, and my lucky number is 2. I said this is either going to be a great show or once and for all we're going to ride it right off the rails. Just going to take it right off the rails and see what happens. So something's going to happen today. I don't know what. But I'm hoping that it's just going to be a really good show because our guest today is one of my favorite people on the face of the earth. And I talk about him all the time on the show, and it's very rare that we can get him in the studio. Of course, I'm giving it away right now. I'm talking about Peter Farag. Peter Farag was the very first ever therapist who came to our door. I see I'm going to get emotional already. My son, as you guys know if you watch the show, my son was diagnosed with autism at 2.5, and right after his 3rd birthday, we were able to start intensive ABA with the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And the first, and you guys know, if you've been in the process of waiting for ABA and trying to figure out what you're going to do to help your child and what that feels like, right? And the waiting, and then finally, you know, the prescribed time has come and the first therapist is going to come to the door, and you know that life as you know it is going to change and you're so excited for it. And I had this whole thing built up in my head of who I thought this, and I saw my schedule, and the first therapist was going to be Peter, and then later on that afternoon, Ryan was going to come. It's like, oh, guys, we're having guys come. And I had this expectation of who these guys were going to be. And of course, neither one of them fit the bill of what my expectation was. Thank goodness, because what showed up was ever so much better than what I could have imagined in my head. But anyway, Peter Farag was the first person who came to the door, and he is... he's one of my favorite people on the face of the earth. He is officially a member of my family until the end of time, one of my favorite people, and I call him the Autism Whisperer because the things that he was able to do with my child, I'm just never going to forget as long as I live. And I hope that you have somebody like that in your home. And if you don't, I hope that you're working and trying to figure out the way to get someone and someones. Because I always talk about Peter as just being the most amazing. The truth is that we had amazing therapist after amazing therapist. It's just we connected with Peter and he connected with my child, and he sees things in a way that's just, sang with us. But we had a team of rock stars that came in and worked with my child, and it really takes a team, right? We've talked about that before on the show. In any case, Peter's amazing. I said I expected some nerdy little science guy that was going to take notes on a clipboard and have that really kind of nerdy kind of scientist feel to him, and instead the genie from Aladdin showed up. That's the kind of energy that Peter has. So thrilled that we're going to have him at the top of the next hour. You won't want to miss it. It's just a rare treat. So he'll be with us. But we are going to be with you for the next 2 hours live, talking about a whole host of things having to do with autism and how you and I can be more efficient, more effective, being on that team, working with our kids, helping them to reach their fullest potential. We know that our kids are all different. We know that they come onto the spectrum in different places and that they learn in different ways and they grow in different ways. But the one thing that we know for sure is that there is progress available for absolutely all of them. Every single child on the spectrum, even if they have dual diagnoses, triple diagnoses, we know that there's progress available to them. And we know for a fact, science has shown us that the only currently scientifically proven effective treatment for autism is ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. If you watched The Night of Too Many Stars last night, and I did, my husband and I sat and watched it together. It was an amazing evening, and we're going to talk about it from time to time today. But in the very beginning, there was Jon Stewart, who I adore, and he was saying, you know, here's the thing, and it's been 2 years since the show has been on, and he said, here's the thing, we know that there is something that works with our kids, and I thought he was going to say ABA, but he said it's education, which ABA is education, and so I was like, he's going to say it, because I can sit here and say it till the cows come home, and the scientists have been saying it, and the Surgeon General said it, but there's something about Jon Stewart saying it, right? So he said it, but he didn't say it, right? We know what he was talking about, and that's the important thing. But ABA is effective at creating progress for all of our kids. For that high-functioning kid that just needs a little bit of support, effective at creating progress. For that child who is profoundly affected, progress. And everything in between as well. So we talk about ABA, but we talk about a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that goes together with ABA, and there's a lot of stuff that goes together with autism. And this entire show is meant to be a conversation between all of us. So I encourage you to be a part of this conversation. Emily's going to start to show you some of the ways that you can converse with us. We are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're on in many different formats, so there's lots of ways to get a hold of us. But if you want to get a hold of us in live time on the show and be on the show, then you're going to want to check us out on autism-live.com. That is where we are live from 10 a.m. to noon Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Almost always Monday through Friday. There are exceptions to that. And if you go on to autism-live.com, you'll see that I'm talking on a box. There's a box next to it. If it says above that box, Shannon is answering right now, then the show is live. Type into the box, hit enter, and it magically shows up here on my screen, and you and I have a conversation that's very reinforcing to me, and I hope will be helpful to you. If it says rebroadcast, then you're going to want to participate in the ways that you just saw on the screen. But we love it when you guys interact with us, whether it's answering the question of the day on Facebook, tweeting a suggestion to us of a topic. You guys wrote in over the weekend a bunch of suggestions, and I've been spending the morning writing back to you saying, that's great, thank you, I want to know these things, and we'll be in the works of getting those things happening for you. Okay, but we like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. I want to remind all of you that although we're going to talk about ABA and we talk about a bunch of different terms, I am not an expert in ABA. I am not an expert in autism. I'm a mom. I'm a former teacher. I have a passion for this subject, of course, like you guys do. And I want to help you to hook up to the things that you want to know. So we bring in experts and we bring in other parents, but I always like to remind you that I'm the placeholder here. I'm not the one with the answers. My goodness. I'm looking for more answers. That's me. In any case, so we take on with the jargon of the day, one word, one phrase, one anagram a day, and try to figure out just what in the hey nani are these people talking about? And how, more importantly, how does this apply to our individual children? So we give you an actual definition, then we give you a working definition, and then we try to break it down a little bit, if we can. Sometimes we don't get it on the first time, right? But just like we teach our kids, we want to give you opportunities to understand these terms. And, you know, maybe the third time that you hear it in the jargon and then hear your expert talking about it with your child, maybe that's the time that it clicks. But it's time well spent. If we make friends with the jargon, it helps us to be better members of the team, truly. I saw that at my own child's IEP this last Thursday. It really helps. Okay, so today, and hopefully this is timely because we were trying to figure this out to be timely, systematic desensitization. What is this and why am I bringing this up today? All right, let's take a look at the actual definition. Oh, look at all the words. A type of counter-conditioning that involves learning to substitute one response, typically muscle relaxation, for an unwanted response, fear or anxiety. The client practices relaxation while imagining anxiety-producing situations in a sequence from the least fearful to the most fearful until the anxiety reaction extinguishes extinguishes, excuse me. Systematic desensitization is something called graduated exposure therapy. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's go to our working definition. Gradually exposing someone to increasingly unpleasant or fear-inducing items or circumstances while having them practice relaxation techniques in order to reduce fears and phobias. All right, why this week? Because next week is Halloween. And for a lot of us with kids on the spectrum, this is one of the rings of hell. Maybe not the 7th ring of hell, but it's one of the rings of hell. And it's interesting how different years our kids can be in different places. I always say that when my kid was 2 and 3 and 4, I could take him into a haunted house and he would laugh and he thought it was hilarious. But you know, the more that we worked on things for him to gain an understanding of the world around him, and I know I'm not the only parent that has experienced this, the more fearful he became, because as he came aware and started to be able to language things, he realized that there were things to be afraid of, things that could hurt him. Right? I got to take a breath there because the anxiety starts to creep up on me. And I think I'm not the only one in terms of that. When we think about our kids out in the world can be a scary place. And we have to make them aware of some of the things that are scary to protect them, right? But then we get to Halloween. And this is supposed to be happy, joyous time. We're supposed to see the postcard of our kid puts on their costume and they go from door to door to strangers and they get candy. Lovely. If you take this apart in terms of autism, it is horrifying. For a child who has any kind of ritualistic, we've been teaching rules, right? Okay, this is how we behave. We don't go up to strangers and ask them to give us food, right? And now for one night only, you're gonna dress as somebody else and we're gonna break all the rules and go out and people are gonna jump out and scare you and there's gonna be open flame and things look like people's heads got... It's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. And yet, we want our kids to participate, right? It starts with figuring out what is your child fearful of? And you've got some time. That's why we wanted to do it today, because you've got a little over a week to think about, okay, what is anxiety producing about Halloween for your child? Is it the costume? Because for some of our kids it is. And you want to pick your battles about if it's the costume that's such a big deal, is there a way that you could do the costume in a different way? Or do we need to start today to systematically desensitize your child? So if your plan, and they really want to, this is key here, so it's not just you deciding, well, I want my child to be a ballerina, and your child really doesn't want to be a ballerina. But sometimes we see kids who say, I really want to be the ballerina, but the getting into the costume from here to there, tough, right? But we can systematically desensitize this child. So maybe today, this morning, we just put the ballet slippers on and we walk around the house and we see what that's like. And maybe we only do it for 2 minutes. But, you know, we do something. And then maybe tomorrow we put on the tights and the ballerina slippers and we walk around for a little bit longer and see how that is. And gradually work to whatever it needs to be. But what we don't want to do is ask a child who is terrified of a mask to put a mask on their face. Maybe that's not the thing this year. Maybe that takes till next year to be able to do. We want to start out with things that make sense, right? So that's if it's the costume. What about if it's being outside in the dark? Well, then we have to go outside a little bit every night. Maybe we just go out and sit on the porch tonight and look at what it's like. We have the light on the porch and we're sitting on the porch for 5 minutes. And maybe tomorrow we go out with our flashlights and we go to down to the street and we do that. Maybe tomorrow night we, walk down to the neighbor's house and go up to their door and knock on their door and practice. What are the things that we need to do to walk our children through? This Friday, my son has a Halloween birthday party to go to. And every year, this Halloween birthday party is like a marker for me about where we are. Because it was really at that party the first time that I looked at all the other kids playing and looked at my child in the corner with a Buzz Lightyear and went, oh, something's not entirely right here. and started the process of getting him diagnosed. This year, because the boys are significantly older, they're having a haunted house at the birthday party. And so we went Saturday, we went and walked through, as they were building the haunted house, walked through it with the lights on. And I'll probably take him back another day this week. And I've already said to him, you don't have to go through the haunted house. It's not a thing that you have to do, but I wanted him to go through it. And we did. We walked through it with the lights on, with nothing popping out at him. But my expectation is that he won't do it. Maybe we can work towards it next year. So we'll see. But systematic desensitization, you know, doing it a little bit at a time, breathing through the anxiety, but you don't throw anybody into the deep end of the pool in terms of anxiety. A little bit at a time, and languaging it for them and saying, see, you're okay, which is exactly what I did when I walked him through and had to carry him through the last half of the haunted house on Saturday. But something we want to consider for Halloween, in some way, working up to it, desensitizing it, talking about the feelings. All right, that's our jargon for today, and we're going to talk more about that all this week. We always have a question of the day for you, and our question today, what causes your child anxiety? And you may not know, but what do you think causes your child anxiety? I know that my child is anxious about heights. I know that my child has stranger anxiety, and I'm grateful for that because he didn't have that for a long time. But now it's swung to the other side of the pendulum. My child is afraid of heights. Did I already say that? And he's afraid of the dark. So those are the things that cause him anxiety, and we work on all of those things in small increments when it's appropriate. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What is your child anxious about? Okay, we always have a topic of the day, of the week. And if you haven't guessed already, we are talking about my old friend anxiety today, which I'm sure is going to be anxiety producing for me to talk about anxiety. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of our kids have anxiety, and a lot of us have anxiety. And I'm told that that's not a coinky-dinky. I kind of believe that. That I'm hearing more and more that parents of children with autism have often some form of OCD or some anxiety disorder. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. I was always somebody who had a degree of anxiety. When my child was diagnosed with autism, it went from here to here, right? Which, was really trying, but what was great about it is when your anxiety is here, sometimes you don't seek help for it. And when it's here, you literally have to. And I did, and I'm a better person for it. So even if your anxiety is here, I want to encourage you to look at options of getting help for it, because there is help. And when we get help for it, it helps us to be more equipped to help our kids. But we are going to talk about that all this week, some of the different things that we have going on today. I have not a strep tip. We don't want to get strep. I have a stress tip for you. We have a motor tip, and Peter Farag will be with us, and we have a brand new A word for you today. So an exciting show on this 22nd of October, our 222nd live show. Can't really get my head wrapped around that. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about stress. Stick with us.
My son.
My son.
My brother.
My daughter is one of the
1 in 88 children
On the autism spectrum.
I have autism.
I have autism.
I have autism,
And I want you to see me as an individual.
And not as a label.
I want to find out why my brother has autism.
I want the government to say that
autism is a public health crisis.
I need to know who will take care of my child when I'm gone.
I want to know what treatments.
What solutions are out there for my child?
We need insurance reform.
In all 50 states.
I want autism to be an unavoidable topic for those running for office this fall.
I want my students to be
safe in school.
I want the bullies to leave me alone.
Autism Speaks encourages all Americans to ask candidates, how will you make a difference for those living with autism?
I want a Senate.
A president.
A Congress
that recognizes autism
as an urgent public health
crisis it is.
I want our lawmakers to listen.
Make your voice heard this election. Visit autismvotes.org.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I want to remind all of you the video that you just watched is available on autismvotes.org. And if you go there and you can click on it every day, it just adds views. And all of us are trying to raise awareness during this election season so that our politicians will see that we are a community that needs to be addressed. So I want to encourage you not to add to your stress. It's a very easy thing to do. Go there. You don't even have to watch it. Just let it play and it adds to the numbers. But we want to talk a little bit about stress this morning. It's Monday, so we always talk about stress on Monday. Monday is often, one of the most stressful days of the week. And I remember when Tim Russert died of a heart attack after coming back from a vacation, everybody said, but he just was on this wonderful vacation. And everybody reminded us that often when we come back to work is when it's the most stressful moment. So Monday is a big, big stress day, whether you are working outside the home or working inside the home with a child on the spectrum. There's just different things that happen on Mondays. And so we always take it on Monday and give you one little tip. Today I want to talk about writing. Writing as a way of releasing, because there's all kinds of things that we can talk about that reduce stress. And we talk about meditation a lot because I like to focus on the things that are virtually no cost. And writing and meditating are virtually no cost. I know that writing, it requires a pen and it requires a piece of paper, but most of us can have access to that at some point. Even, there are places where they hand out paper. So having a piece of paper and a pen is an opportunity for you to turn things around. I don't know what it is about writing, but people in all walks of life and all levels of stress, and certainly autism parents, if you see autism parent blogging is a very huge, huge thing, and there's a really good reason why. There are those of us who need to read it, and there are those of us who need to write it, to write what our experience is and to share it, and we all learn from it, right? Whether you choose to write a blog, and by the way, you can have a blog and have it be private, or you can have it be public, and you can choose at any moment which, if you've been writing a public blog and you go, I'm getting too much attention here, I just really need a place to release this stuff, you can make it private. And blogs are available for free. You can sign up for a free blog on WordPress or Blogger and have a space to write what you're feeling. And you can make it private and later on change your mind. But having a place to write down what you feel is so essential. I was saying to somebody recently at the ARI conference that what I have learned through writing, and I wrote all during the time that my child was doing therapy, and now I'm writing about it after the fact, because I have found that I am talking to a lot of people who have finished their ABA, and there's still some work as a parent you have to do afterwards because you get stuck. You literally get stuck, and I don't want to get stuck. So much is good in our lives right now. I don't want to get stuck. But somebody suggested, write it from the beginning. Talk about what happened and what it felt like with the perspective that you have now. You have the stuff from when you were writing about it, write about it now. And one of the big things that I discovered about myself is that I understand anger. Anger is comfortable for me. I know what to do with anger. I've been angry in my life, and it's easy for me. What isn't easy for me is grief. What isn't easy for me is a loss of control. What isn't easy for me is fear. And when I get angry, and when I get stressed and I'm starting to feel grief and fear, I go to the anger. And there's only two ways that I personally can get rid of anger, and one of them is to write down exactly what I'm feeling. And then the other one is afterwards to physically do something to move it out of my body, whether it's take a walk or whatever. But if I just walk, it doesn't take care of it. I have to write. And for me, I tend to write letters that I will never, ever mail. Because because I can be incredibly honest. Someday I have said when I'm like 80, maybe I'll publish them or do a one-woman show of the letters unsent. But when you sit down to write a letter to somebody and you know you're never going to mail it, you know you can be completely honest and just what they call vomit on the page. Just vomit on the page and get it all out. And what I find is that by the time I'm done and spent and I can't write anymore, the anger has been let go of, and I can put down on the page what the fear is. You know, Evelyn Gould comes in and talks on a regular basis with us about how when we get upset, there's a core issue there that's been threatened. And the only way I can get to it is by writing. And I know that I'm not the only autism parent out there that feels that, otherwise we wouldn't have so many autism blogs. So I want to encourage you to write today. Right, you know, I know there's something that you're holding on to, something that you're having a hard time facing, or something that has ticked you off. And I can't imagine that you're all, you know, Buddhas and happy and have nothing going on today. So I want to encourage you to just try for one day to write. And it doesn't have to be a letter, although that's what really works for me. But write down and keep writing until you get to the bottom of it. And if you stop writing and you think you're done, and then you find that you're going and you're cleaning the kitchen and you're still thinking about it, you're not done. You're not done. Go back and write some more. Sometimes I can write a paragraph and go, oh, look, there it is, I'm done. And other times it takes half of a notebook and several days, even weeks, to get it all. But it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile because I think when we don't let go of the things that anger us, and when we don't get to the bottom of what the fear is or what the grief is or what the core issue is, the core value, and we hang on to it, we get sick. Whether it's that we get the sniffles or that we get aches and pains, it wears on us. It's literally like carrying a bowling ball around. And imagine if you carried a bowling ball around for a day, how tired you would be and how bad your shoulders and your arms would hurt. It's time to put as many of the bowling balls down as we can because our kids need us. And it's okay to write things on a page because nobody's going to see them unless you choose to. So you have control over that. So I encourage you today, take some time, write, let it be whatever it needs to be. If you feel like you want to cry, cry. The wonderful thing about crying is that you can't do it for very long. I know it doesn't feel that way, and we all try really hard not to cry, but you can't cry for very long. Get it down on the page, and if you're worried that somebody's going to read it later on, take it and throw it in the fireplace. Put it in the barbecue, do something with it, shred it up, put it through the paper shredder so that nobody has to see it, because it's really about us. It's not about who might read it. And getting it off your shoulders, it relieves stress. I was saying this morning that I watched a little bit of Ileana Van Zandt over the weekend on the Oprah Winfrey Network. I love Ileana Van Zandt, and she was saying, let's call a thing a thing. And we have stress, and we have anger, and we have grief, and we have fear. And we have issues of feeling like we don't have control because there are some things that we don't have control over. That's hard. That's really hard, but that's the core. That's the core. There are things we don't have control over. And once we call a thing, and when you write it down, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. You go, oh, there it is. I'm mad at you because this. Oh, okay. Well, that's because I'm afraid of this, which is I don't have control over that. Then we get to move on to another space with less stress, not carrying the bowling ball. Clear the bowling balls. Write it down. Write it down and get rid of it if you need to, or share if it's something that you think is productive for everybody else. But that's how we begin to reduce some of the stress and some of the baggage, which will help us with anxiety. We're going to be talking about anxiety all week. So stick with us. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we have a motor tip for you about helping our kids to get the tripod grasp that's going to be essential for when they start to write. Stick with us.
ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, was founded in 2004 by several passionate parents who believe that access to early, effective treatment is vital for individuals with autism. Together with Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, the world's leading provider of therapy for autism, this group created Act Today to do just as the name implies, take action immediately to treat autism spectrum disorders.
A lot of families and parents and even physicians don't yet accept the fact that we are recovering children with autism.
In 2006, inspired by her struggle to get treatment for her young son Wyatt, television producer and author Nancy Alspaugh Jackson and her husband Reed hosted a backyard benefit for the foundation called Denim and Diamonds for Autism. Tens of thousands of dollars were raised, and in 2008, Alspaugh Jackson took the helm of Act Today as executive director.
This country has to come together to save a generation of children.
With a dedicated board of directors, a small but committed staff called the A-Team, as in autism, Act Today is making a huge difference in the lives of children across the country. Grants that fund programs for behavior therapy, special needs schools, and summer camps. Medical needs like diagnostic tests and special diets. Basic safety equipment such as helmets for children who repetitively bang their heads, and fencing for those who wander. Assisted technologies and assistance dogs.
Hi, my name is Max, and I love my iPad too. It's so great. I can take photos.
In 2010, Act for Military Families became the first national campaign to benefit military children with autism.
I'm Joe Montaigne. As a father of a daughter with autism, I know the challenges that brings.
Act Today continues to educate and raise national awareness on the need for early and intensive intervention for an epidemic that affects at least 1 in 110 children.
I called on November 1st. And I'm like, how am I going to get notified? How are you going to let me know? And they ended up looking and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above.
Act Today, fulfilling its mission of helping families with autism, one child at a time.
Welcome back to Autism Live. You know, every week we try to give tips of different areas where we can help our children to gain a new skill. And so today I have a motor tip for you. And I mentioned before the break that we were going to talk about the tripod grasp and how important it is that our children get that tripod grasp right. It's going to set them up for being able to write effectively, do good handwriting skills, which help with so much, right? But when we talk about the tripod grasp, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, now, okay, wait a second. I've got a 2-year-old, and clearly I'm not going to work on the tripod grasp yet with a 2-year-old. You're right. It's a little bit older skill, and there are some prerequisites for it, which we're going to go over in just a second. But you might also be thinking to yourself, well, I've got a 15-year-old, and my question would be to you, but is your 15-year-old able to do handwriting? There's lots of things that go along with handwriting, but one of them is the tripod grasp, and it's never too late to go back and teach the tripod grasp. You know, we see so often kids who will write that like this. I'm left-handed, and I was not allowed to do that as a child. So many left-handed kids did that. But we can teach that tripod grasp no matter what age so that the child is set up for success. And there are lots of other things that could be going on if your child isn't doing good handwriting skills, but check that first, you know, because it is one of the easier things to fix. So let's look at some of the prerequisites, for teaching the tripod grasp. First of all, you can't even begin to teach tripod grasp until you have some semblance of eye contact. So if your child doesn't have eye contact yet, you're going to wait and go back and work on that. Also, you know, these are the big two usually when you're going to start a lesson. You got to have eye contact and you got to have compliance, because if you don't have compliance, you're going to have a difficult time getting them to succeed in this lesson. We want to have non-vocal imitation on board so that if I say do this and then I do something, that the child then copies it, that they find that reinforcing, and we can work up to that. We have to have some basic finger skills, right? We have to have some basic hand skills, and we also have to have the skill of following one-step instructions. If your child does not have all of these things, at least making progress on them, you would want to go back and work on all of those individual things. There are lessons for these and skills so that you can get all of these different things on board before you attempt. It's like putting the cart before the horse, though. If you were going to teach the tripod grasp and you didn't have these things in place, you're not going to be successful. You're going to get frustrated. Your child's going to get frustrated. They're not going to end up being a happy tripod grasper. Okay, some other things. Once we have these things in place, some other things that we want to consider, we have to vary the materials. We don't want to constantly have our child have the red pen that has the little triangle thing on it that helps with the tripod grasp. We don't want to have that constantly. Maybe you start with that, but very quickly you want to vary it, because we don't want to create a child who's inflexible and can only do this with a certain kind of pencil or a certain kind of pen. Later on, once they have the skill and they can use it with anything, then we can talk about what their preference is, for sure. But we have to get the skill with all kinds of different things to begin with. So you want to use pencils, you want to use markers, you want to use the thin markers, the fat markers, crayons. You can start with fat ones and you can go with thin ones eventually. They have some that have glitter. We want all sizes and all colors on all manner of things. My son finds pens very slippery. So, and of course the one that I've got right here has little grippies on it. But there are all kinds of things that you can put on pencils. There's all kinds of things that you can put on pens. They have those mechanical pencils. Vary your materials. And one of the things that we've talked about before on the show is that if you really want to set yourself up for success, we talk about errorless learning. One of the best things that you can do is take a box of your old crayons and take the crayons and make them really teeny tiny short. Pull the wrapper off of them and break them. Excuse me. Because broken crayons, you can't hold them any other way. Usually when you give a child a crayon, the big crayons, what do? The first time that they do something, they hold it like this, right? Because that's what feels comfortable. All kids do that. On the spectrum, not on the spectrum, that's the way they're going to hold something and write like that. But when you have a thin little, and I don't have anything that's that small, when you have a thin little crayon, you can't get your hand around it. You can't stick a little tiny crayon and do this. You end up automatically having to do the tripod grasp. It's the only way you can get the crayon to work. You can't put it on its side. It forces you to do the tripod grasp. So I want to encourage you, even if you have 2-year-olds, and you're not working on tripod grasp, have your child from time to time work with a box of broken crayons. You can make them really pretty if you take the wrapper off, because otherwise the kids kind of perseverate on the wrappers. You can make them really pretty, stick them in a bucket. We had a little thing that came home from the OT at school that I don't know what it was, a bobbin case or something. It was just a little itty bitty case that had little itty bitty compartments, and it was the rainbow of little tiny pieces of crayon, and it made it fun. I wanted to sit and color with my son because it made it fun, but it also ensures success. Okay, so when we start to teach the tripod grasp, we start with a very specific way. Now, obviously, we're going to build on this skill, but we're going to help the child and put the crayon or the pencil or whatever it is into their hand, and we're going to show them the right way to do it. But then it says the parent teacher presents the child with a piece of paper with a line pre-written on it, and says, draw a line. And you can demonstrate it for them in the beginning. And sometimes we want to actually physically help the child. We have them draw the line using the tripod grasp, and we reinforce it heavily. And this is the key. Whatever it takes to get the child, and we're not trying to do letters right out the gate, we're just trying to do a line. Now, gradually, as we get more advanced in the child, we're fading our prompts so that the child then can do this themselves with the tripod grasp. And think about, how long did it just take me to draw that line? It's a millisecond, right? But we reinforce it so that the child goes, okay, I don't really get what the big deal is. This is not all that hard for me to do, because remember, we can even physically prompt them through it the first few times, but we're upping the ante so that when they do it on their own, they get reinforced heavily. Once we do that, then, we can make those lines we can make it a zigzag line, we can make it a dash, we can make it a circle, and then eventually we can work into letters and numbers and pictures. But the main thing is make it easy to begin with. Model it for them and physically prompt them through it, and then reinforce that you drew the line with the right tripod grasp. It might be frustrating to them, particularly if they're used to doing it this way, or if they're used to doing it some other, interesting, different way to hold on other than the tripod grasp. All we're trying to do is say, when you do it this way, I'm going to make your life really wonderful. I'm going to give you good things. I'm going to praise you. I'm going to make sure that you know that this way is awesome. Lots of different things that we can do to build on this lesson, including working with chopsticks. My son and I were just playing a game the other day that we hadn't played in a long time. It comes in one of those little banana zipper bags that was chopsticks, and there's these little plastic chickens, and you have to pick up the chickens with the chopsticks. And all those things help to build those finger and hand skills. But the key, again, is to make sure that we reinforce, and break those crayons, because they make it impossible to hold it any other way. You might want to start with that, but vary the materials always. There's our motor tip for the day. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and look at your answers to the question of the day. Stick with us.
Autism used to affect 1 in every 10,000 children. Now it affects 1 in every 91 kids.
TACA is one of 5 organizations helping families living with autism today.
Our kids came back to life. There's a whole community out there, and now we're a part of it.
Oh, TACA has a place for me.
To find TACA, go to www.tacanow.org.
Please.
Welcome back. Our question of the day today was, what causes anxiety in your child? And we had somebody write in on the live forum. I don't know why I can't find that on my, oh, there we go. Okay, so somebody wrote in and said, and I'm showing this on the screen right now, my daughter is anxious about the rain. It doesn't matter how hard it's raining. It could be just sprinkling out. I think it has to relate to our satellite, and she's afraid that the TV will go out. Isn't that interesting? And I know that a lot of times we tend to, with a lot of other things, we tend to think that behavior just happens, right? That it springs out of nowhere. And yet we see that that really isn't the truth, that things correlate to other things. And sometimes it's like a puzzle piece to figure out, okay, what does this have to do with anything? And so I imagine that there was a period of time when you noticed that your child was having a reaction to the rain, and you're starting to put it together that it's tied to the TV. Well, and what's interesting about that is that there might be some things that you can do to help your child to realize that every time it rains doesn't mean that the TV goes out. I shared before that once my son was diagnosed with autism, about 1.5 years-ish into it, I started having panic attacks. And I really thought that they were coming from nowhere, and I had to get some help for it. I literally had to get some help for it. And one of the things, I had cognitive behavior therapy, and one of the things that they worked with me on is when I would have the feelings, talking about, well, why? Why am I having this feeling? What am I afraid of? Has that ever happened before? Is it a realistic fear? Has rain ever caused the TV to go out before? And then saying, yeah, it has, but how often? Like, did it make it go out once? Did it make it go out twice? And it really helped me to figure out, oh, I'm having anxiety because this did happen before. I'm not entirely crazy about this. It did happen before, but it doesn't happen all the time. So what are the odds here? Now, that's a lot for an adult to go through, and to expect a child to go through that. It's a pretty big expectation, right? However, there are times and situations where our kids get it. I've been able to say to my son, all right, what's going on here? Why? Yeah, that happened once, didn't it? But how many times have we done this other thing? I think I've shared before on the show that year before last, was it the year before that? I think it's been 2 years ago now, that we went to see public fireworks on the 4th of July. And it was horrible because at the very end, as the finale started, there was a terrible, terrible tragedy, literally like 20 feet away from us. where a car hit another car and sent the other car into the crowd, and there was at least one death, and it was horrible. It was really horrible, and everyone was trapped there. There were children who saw the whole thing, and my child was one who was right there. Fortunately, he didn't get to see much, but I was traumatized by it. My husband was traumatized by it. My child was traumatized by it. And for a little while, I didn't know if any of us were ever going to be able to see fireworks again. But we were able to, and we talked it through. And but just the other day, we were someplace, and my son was being a little squirrely. And there were a lot of people, and there were people standing on street corners, and we were watching something, and he was being a little squirrely. And I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "This is like that." And I said, "Okay." And we had a whole discussion about it. And I said, "Yes, that was terrible. And we know now that that can happen. So we're taking precautions, and we're not standing this close to the road anymore. We probably never will again." And I said, "But how many times have we been to an event like this? How many times have we seen fireworks? How many times have we done this? And that only happened once, right? So it can happen, but it's really unusual." And we talked about other things that were unusual, and he felt better and settled down and was fine and wasn't so squirrely anymore. So sometimes when it's appropriate, we can work through those kinds of things with our kids. But I digress. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Okay, so somebody wrote in and said, in answer to what causes your child anxiety, said celebrations, changes in daily routines, new people. Halloween! Hitting it on all levels, right? Another person said having to be responsible that causes anxiety. That's interesting. New people, changes in routines. Another person says school fire drills. Those are anxiety causing, really, really anxiety causing. But again, we can work through those things. Another person says noise, crowded places, machinery noises, change of schedule too. I just remembered where it was that he was starting to, it was when we went to see the Space Shuttle Endeavour, and there were people lined up on the street, and it was really crowded. And I was having anxiety when we got close, and there were so many people, and I said, we have to go back. We have to go back a little ways. We can't be this close. This is making me a little, I couldn't handle it. So, we have stuff too. But crowded places, machinery noises, changes of schedule too. Another person who says situations that are stressful, when someone is mad or there is a conflict. Also, social situations can make him anxious, along with a lot of people, right? Oh, okay, here's one that's really specific. The hand dryer in the McDonald's restroom. Now, see, that's one of those things. There are a lot of things here where you go, okay, well, how much control do we have over, and, it depends on how stressful the situation is. But certainly something like the hand dryer in the McDonald's restroom, you can make a quality judgment for yourself and say, how often are we in the McDonald's restroom? And is it just the McDonald's restroom, or is it hand dryers everywhere? And is there a way that we could work on this a little bit and make a whole lot of progress on this? Absolutely. But is it a priority? Really important to consider. Oh, another person who says bugs, no power and having no lights. That's something that really causes a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. Oh, this is another one that's interesting. If the gas tank is less than half full, I have no idea where his fear of running out of gas came from. And it could be something as simple as a movie or a commercial. It's just amazing how much their input there is in our children's lives now, things that they can just see in passing that have an effect upon them. But interesting that that's something that he's concerned about. Another person who says, my son has a fear of being late for school. Mornings have been tough. Oh, wow. That's a really hard one, because sometimes, like my first reaction was like, oh, that's great. So I'm sure you get to school on time, but probably not in actuality, because there's so much going on. And some days we're all going to be late, right? I don't think that that's an unrealistic expectation. Very few children get that thing at the end of the year of being on time every day, right? So more reasonable to think that at some point we're going to be late. And if that causes that much anxiety, that can be a really difficult thing. I wonder if talking about it with a teacher, and if there's a way that that could be worked on in conjunction with the teacher for the child to gradually work up to being late one day and seeing that nothing bad happened as a result. You'd want to go really slow, right? Another person who says the unknown, if it's not scheduled, brace yourself. Yeah, and you know what's terrible is that we hear all these things and it makes sense to a certain degree, right? And we either know somebody or we ourselves can relate to that and say, well, I don't like the unknown either. I don't like to know, to have things happen spur of the moment, especially if they're negative. But it's when it gets to the point where you can't cope, and usually that's what happens to our kids. They get so filled with anxiety that they can't cope, and then it shuts everything down. It shuts down for us as well. Another person who says that everything causes anxiety. That's so terrible. So I can tell you from my experience with anxiety, when you're in that space, it's not fun. It's not a good way to be feeling. Another person who says the future, I think we can all relate to that. Thunder and lightning. What's interesting to me is that I said before on the show, we just recently adopted a dog who, oh my goodness. My dog has post-traumatic stress syndrome, big anxiety, and they asked us to get her, it's called a thunder shirt, for dogs who are really afraid of thunder and lightning and have a great deal of anxiety. And basically it's the same thing that we did to our babies when they were little. You burrito them in the blanket. It's this Velcro stretchy thing that you put on them that's sort of like a compression garment to put on the dog that makes them feel more secure. And I know that I don't like to be in things that are tight and restrictive, but especially in the dark and whatever, we have some shirts that we got for my son that are those spandexy. You can wear them in the swimming pool, you can jog in them, and you can get them no sleeve, short sleeve, or long sleeve, but they're just tight fitting. They're like bicycle athletic shirts, that kind of thing. And we got several of them for him when they were on sale, and that he could wear them underneath things. They have a little bit of a turtleneck on them. He could wear them underneath things, and that it helped. That he even referred to this one jacket that he had on as his security jacket when he was little, because he said that he felt better. But really it wasn't the jacket, it was that we'd put them in that thing. It's not tight to be restrictive, but it just fits, very fitted, spandexy, very fitted. An interesting thing that for some kids that can make a difference, and those are very socially acceptable. All the kids wear those, and nobody realizes that it's for any kind of anxiety. Another person who says motorcycles and being alone. Interesting, the things that our kids are bothered by. Another person says change, any kind of change. That's hard. There's flexibility lessons in skills that you can work on, and you want to work slowly, because we don't want to you just want to cause a very small amount of anxiety and show the child that it's okay. But you don't want to, as I said, throw them into the deep end of the pool. Another person says if something doesn't go the way he thinks it's supposed to, that it causes anxiety. A lot of our kids are that way. I want to go to another one of we've got a minute here. To read some of the other things that you guys have written in. These are all really interesting. And of course, I know interesting is a bad thing to say, because when it's in your house, it can be to the point where it's debilitating, right? Another person says, my son gets anxious when he thinks I'm going to be in his classroom for an observation. That makes it really hard, doesn't it? But is there a two-way window? Is there a way that he can not know? Would be my question for that. Another person says frustration and my husband's anxiety. Well, that was certainly the case with my child. When I was feeling anxiety, they're little sponges. And so then he would start to feel anxious. We have to be really careful about that kind of thing. Another person who says dogs, loud voices, and school. And all of those things are concerning, but especially school, having anxiety around school. There's usually a reason, and we don't have to go to like the horrible place, right? But if school is causing anxiety, there's a reason, and I want to encourage you to figure out what it is. And I don't know whether your child is vocal or not, but I would be visiting the school a lot and trying to identify and giving your child functional communication to tell you what at school, what the fear is or what happened or it is happening that's causing anxiety. Because whatever it is, it's potentially very fixable, and you don't want it to go on for a long period of time. Your child has to go to school for a long time, so don't let that go would be my advice. Seek out help and see if you can't figure it out. Another person says new people. He's very hesitant about meeting someone new, like so many people, on and off the spectrum. Another person says potty. Sometimes when people talk to her or about having to answer questions, dogs, being hurried along, anticipating going somewhere that she really likes because she's afraid you'll leave without her, being in the dark bedroom at bedtime all alone. That's quite a list of things to be concerned about. And another person says the bathroom and the dark. The dark is a big one, right? And this is an issue that we have at home. And over the years, we've tried lots of different things in different spaces. We have night lights in bathrooms. And because he's into space, he has one of those moon lights that he can have the remote control and sit in bed and he can put it on different phases of the moon. Really cool toy. He also has a lava lamp that we cycle in and out of things that make it better for him. But I don't think any of us loves to sit in the dark, right? Maybe once we go to bed and we're all comfortable, maybe we want it to be dark there. But I'm a big fan of having some form of light either in their bedroom or directly outside of their bedroom. I know there are people who say they get better sleep if there isn't a whole lot of light, so you want to be careful about how much light there is. But if they're having trouble sleeping and they're having trouble with anxiety, I just feel like that's a place where we can say, hey, this is reasonable that there be this amount of light, and have it be something, they make all those things now. The ladybug that lights up and puts things on the ceiling. Shop with the child, see if there's something that you can find that can reduce the anxiety that you can work with. They have glow pillows now. I have no idea whether those are safe or not, but there's all different kinds of things that we can do for the bedroom situation and for the bathroom situation. And it's not just our kids on the spectrum. By any stretch of the imagination, it's a pretty normal kid fear. It's just that with our kids on the autism spectrum, if we don't head it off at the pass, it can grow and grow and grow and stick around for a much longer time than for a kid who's not on the spectrum. So I think try to find the compromise with the bedroom and the bathroom dark thing as early as you possibly can. All right, it is time for us to switch gears and take a look at a new episode of The A Word. This is the amazing documentary being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, as he begins his early intensive behavior intervention. At this point, we're about 8 or 9 weeks into the therapy, and we've seen that sometimes Jack Riley is having some difficulty with some of the things that he's been asked to do because he's used to doing it a certain way. But we talked about this last week. Sometimes we just can't let them do it the way that they've found to do it, because it's not going to set them up for success with the skill down the road. It's hard sometimes, and it's hard for the parents. So let's take a look at what's happening this week with Jack Riley. This is The A Word.
This is Jack's morning routine. He just got out of bed. He's a happy guy. He's sitting with Dad, drinking some milk, watching some tunes. Hi, Jack.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How old are you, Jack?
2.
How old are you, Jack? Can you say good morning?
Googie.
Good morning.
Googie.
Good morning.
Googie.
Good. That's good. That's good. Sometimes he arranges the coins lately. He's been used to just put them straight in the piggy bank, and now he likes to play with them and arrange them. Nice.
Good job. Say more. Oh, good. That was
That's a good M. Nice building. Good. More. Here you go. We definitely want his scores to increase with him talking more. Because he knows everything and he knows what everything is, but you're just getting him to independently ask for things. Because we want to get him to man for things. At least
What are you
20
saying?
times
What's the
now.
word you're using?
Manned.
Manned?
Manned.
As in
like requesting. Okay. So he can say like the object, like he can say train, or he can say more, or he can say all done, anything to communicate with you. Because he has a language, but I don't think we give him enough opportunities to ask for things or
That makes
request for
sense.
things.
That makes sense. We just have to require it more.
Yeah, and then after that we'll move into more frames such as like I want to train,
Okay.
I want this.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I
Is
have
that-
Dad hold the train, and then have to ask Daddy.
Daddy's
Look,
here.
Daddy has the train. So Mike, have him ask you for the tracks. You can even just hold it out in front of him, and then he'll even ask you.
More?
Okay. So here we go. Yeah, good talking. Very good. I've never seen him play train so intricately before.
He's been pretty much daily. He's asked for his train once.
Can you say, give me? Okay.
Thank you. Good talking.
There
Good
you
talking,
go.
buddy. Good asking. Good asking.
Yeah, definitely his 2 syllables are just
Yeah.
coming along really well.
Yeah. I mean, they're all, most of them are approximations, but they're the same every time. He's a little sedate today, actually. I'm surprised. Excuse me. He gets concerned when I sneeze and cough. Daddy, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay.
Oh,
See that?
That's the closest
See that?
it sounded.
Cheryl taught on that.
Cute, Dad.
Can you say I love you? That's I love you. Same every time. It's kind of like yellow, but yellow doesn't melt us like that.
Hi, we're going to be working on some pictures. Let me get your picture first. What is it? Pants. Very good. Here you go. Here you go. He's doing a lot of imitating things, and in clinic the other day we noticed that every time he said "look at me," he'd repeat it, but in his own way, so it comes out as "baby." So every time he would look at me, he's like "baby, baby." What is it? Pants. Hey, over here, look at me. Look at me. No, over here, look at me. Right here, there we go. That is a train. We'll play with it in just a second, okay? Hey, look at me. Now look at me. Right here, there are your eyes. What is it? Pants. Okay, you can go. Good job. Okay, go play. Do you want the book or the trains? Book or trains? Trains. Okay, good. Go play. Go play with your trains. Go ahead. You can go play now. Oh, you want to look at the pictures? More? More pictures? Here, you can look at the pictures. Here, want to show Suzanne what you know? How about let's look at the ones that you do know? Those are the ones that you don't know. Bunny. Wow, this is a lot more than I thought. What's that one?
Oh, this one. Da 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 da.
Shop. You are so smart. Tiger. Tiger.
Nice.
Good job. Okay, what else? What's this one? Ellie. Ellie. Oh, it's getting closer. Elephant. Getting closer. Lion. Lion. You do know a lot of animals.
Between last week and today, Jack is able to label more cards. He's interested in identifying the images and consequently building his vocabulary. As the weeks progress in his ABA therapy, so has his skills. In 2 months, he's gone from babbling to enunciating certain words clearly. With prompting, he's able to practice appropriate speech when playing and requesting objects. Eventually, the prompting will fade and he will do it on his own. Each new skill acquired builds on the previous one.
You're interested again? Here, why don't you go over there? Go over here and you can see better.
Train.
What's that?
Train.
Ooh, you want to move it for me? Show me your train. Say choo-choo. Yeah, move it.
Welcome back. That was the A word. And while we were watching that, we had a very special guest who snuck into the studio that I was telling you about earlier. Peter Farag is joining us right now. And I shared a little bit about you earlier, but if you're just tuning in, I talk about Peter from time to time because he's one of my favorite people on the face of the earth. I'm going to try not to get emotional. I shouldn't have put the tissues away. Peter is an amazing, I call him the Autism Whisperer. He was the first ever therapist who came to our door, and I was saying earlier that I had this expectation that this nerdy person was, I pictured a guy who was going to come with a suit. I don't know what I thought of therapy, but I pictured a guy was going to come with a suit and that he was going to have a man purse with a clipboard in it, and I just pictured this very scientific, geeky, nerd type guy who was going to be taking all this data. And then Peter came and was this, you have an amazing personality. You are just outgoing. He would be in my living room going, yes! And I would think, okay, the people in the condo next to us are going to call the police and think that we have some weird thing going on. But Peter is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I'm so happy that we're going to talk a little bit later about the kinds of things that you are doing in the world. I always said to Peter, you're going to change the face of autism. And he is trotting the globe these days doing just that. And I know for those of you who have had the opportunity to meet him and have him work with your children, you know how fabulous he is. But for those of you who don't know, I'm so thrilled that he's here because it's very hard to get him in the studio because he's a busy man. But I want to talk a little bit about when you came to our house.
Yeah.
I know you can't talk in precise things about other people's kids, but I'm giving you permission to talk about our child.
Okay.
I know what my expectations were when you came and they were completely blown out the window, but I've never asked you, you go to people's houses all the time and it's the first time. What's your expectation coming into a house ever? It's just the same thing or?
No, it's not usually the same thing. I think when I first started in the field, it was, I had anxiety about it. It's very nerve-wracking. Oh, sure. It was, we have this responsibility on our shoulders and this child's life in our hands when we're there, and not only the child's, but the families as well. And, you get some input. Usually somebody has met the child or the family before, so you get some input. But
so you know a little bit about what you're walking into.
Yeah, a little bit, but I never really count on my expectations.
Okay.
And I think that started early, so I stopped having like these visions of what I was going to be walking into. I knew about the child, I knew about the child's behavior, I knew the family dynamic, and that was pretty much how I went into it.
Okay.
There were times where I didn't know. I was not able to get enough information or anything, and I think the mistake was, oh, I've heard about this child, so I expect this, and then you go in and go, okay, I gotta completely change my whole thought process and how I'm gonna relate to this child and relate to this family. But usually we have a pretty good idea. Somebody has met the family, or we've spoken to them. We know a little bit about the child, so it makes it a little bit easier to go in and just think behaviorally, really. Yeah. Okay, I know that these things are happening with this child, and we're gonna manage them this way. With Jem, because he's a new client.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
You go in and you honestly expect this child is going to dislike me to a degree that I can't even explain. Because
but that's not the case. That's never the case. They adore you.
Yeah, but you know, at the beginning you go in and you change this child's world.
Yes.
You know, they're used to living life one way or behaving one way, and we kind of go in and like, okay, here we go. We're gonna kind of flip it all upside down, like a child who goes to school for the first couple of days. It's very just, they're anxious. They don't know what to expect. The things that they normally did, they're no longer allowed to do. So yeah, I remember specifically thinking about Jem and other children where I was going in. I was like, okay, first time with a therapist, probably going to have a really hard time, even though I know I'm going in there to play.
Right.
Like that first day is never just like, hey, here's, sit down, buddy, time to get to work.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. Some children that have been in it for a while understand that and they're used to it, but even now to this day I go into sessions and you know, it's never like, okay, come sit down, time to do your homework, time to run through these programs. No, it's always, you got to spend a good 15 minutes kind of getting to know the kid, playing with them. In my sessions now, I go in and at least 5-10 minutes and hanging out, talking to them, playing with them, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting for parents to know, because with a little bit of, now there's so much about ABA and there's so many videos online and there's so many things you can look and you can see DTT happening, right? We see that all the time. You can go on YouTube, there are countless videos there, which is great. But the negative of it, I think a lot of people look at that and go, well, my child wouldn't do that. My child's not going to sit in the chair. My child's not going to sit at the table. If I could have my child sit in the chair and sit at the table, then I wouldn't need a whole lot of help. That I had seen a little bit of that and thought, what on earth? How are they going to do this? Because my kid had sat in a classroom where they were doing music, and my kid loved music, and they had to strap him down to a therapy chair. They had a weighted vest on, they had a weighted blanket on, and it still took 3 adults as he was trying to claw his way out the door. Like, he tried to bite the door to get out, you know? And I would think, how are they going to get my kid to sit at a table?
Yeah.
But you did.
Yeah, well...
But you didn't start with the table.
No, we didn't. Specifically with him, we spent several sessions actually playing with him.
Yeah.
I remember he did have a very difficult time. The whole concept of like having to sit there, that was not okay with him. And it was, you know, we hit that breakthrough with him, and that's when it kind of, his program took off.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have to teach that first.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's the great thing about the CARD curriculum and the skills program is we teach you how to teach those things.
Yes.
We have programming for those things. But yeah, sometimes a mistake can be made, like, okay, I got to get the child to the table to sit down and, you know, engage in an activity. But you can't lose sight of the fact that, well, there's several different instructions that go along with that. And, you know, one of the things that I'm always telling my therapists and we speak about with my colleagues is, like, we need to be really careful about how many instructions we give before there's some consequence. I mean, it should be an instruction, a response, and a consequence. So, you know, sit down is an instruction. But you can't go in and say, okay, buddy, come sit down. We got to get to work. I need you to put your hat up, and I need you to grab a pencil. And it's like, whoa, whoa. You know, the child will get overwhelmed, and so we need to kind of take a step back and look at, okay, how are we going to get from point A to point B? Well, there are several steps between that and there.
But what's truly amazing about you is that you think through that all the time, and I love to watch you think, Peter, because there were so many times that we would be at clinic or something would happen, and I would watch you think through about how were you going to get Jem to be able to do this, and you're very creative that way. I don't know if you remember, because it's all how many thousands of children have you worked with at this point, but we couldn't get Jem to count to 100. Do you remember that?
I do.
And everybody had taken a shot at it. Everybody had tried, excuse me, 38 different ways to get him to count to 100, and it just wasn't clicking. And we were all frustrated. And there were some aspects of it that he had, and there were some that he didn't. And finally, you said, "Give me a minute." Give me a minute. And you sat down with some index cards and you put together a way that you could demonstrate to him so that he would get it.
Right.
Do you remember what that was?
I don't. I do remember the index cards.
Because you had the 10s.
Yeah.
You had all the 10s, so you have 10 and you had 20 on cards, and then you had the 1 through 9.
Yeah.
And so you had him sit down, and so he counted, you know, and he played the cards as he counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4. You did, and then you put down the 10, and then you counted 11, and it was graphic that he could see. It was the 10 plus the 1, which is not how you would teach the vast majority of people how to count to 100, but it was the only way that he got it.
Yeah.
And we got to sit there. I wish we had it on videotape. And but we got to see him get it in that way, because there is no, I always talk about there's no one size fits all, but to see you be creative and know the child and say, all right, we're gonna have to go through the side door on this one to get the concept, it's amazing. And I think it's wonderful. You know, we have CARDI learning and we have skills to learn the basics, but you have a creativity about it that I'm in awe of and jealous of.
Well, you know, I think I do remember now. And I don't, to be honest, I don't remember what triggered that thought even.
Right.
Like, I was basically teaching him beginning level math. But I was like, he was such a visual learner.
Yeah.
I knew that even with the letters and how we taught those things, he got it once we kind of introduced a visual component to it.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I'm sure people have seen it on my face too, where I'll sit and I'll kind of go, hey, okay, I need to think this through. And they see the process and I'm thinking, and then they see the frustration. It's like, oh, I can't get this. But you have to.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to, without really sitting down and trying to break it down for myself.
Right.
How can I teach the child and train therapy staff? And I think one thing that, you know, creativity for me, thankfully, was something that, you know, my background, it was easier for me to kind of get creative with some things. But I had some amazing trainers. I really did. You know, I know Sienna Greener-Wooten has been on the show. She was, you know, the first clinical person I had contact with, and it was such like just a relief to work with somebody who at that time already knew so much and kind of was that creative person, and she always had an answer. It's like, well, it's not working this way, we need to try this. And she would challenge us, you know, as a beginning level therapist. She would challenge us and say, hey, look, you need to figure out why this is not working. Think about it. What is it? What's the function of that behavior?
Right.
Okay, you know how you're supposed to manage that behavior. Do you know why you're managing it?
Right.
Do you know why you put things on extinction? Do you understand those concepts? Do you know why we teach this program first before teaching this program?
Yeah.
And do you know how these programs all go together? She really challenged us. And once you're challenged and you figure out, like, I need to get from this point to that point, creativity becomes a little bit easier, because there's not just one simple way to do it.
Right.
So.
And our kids are all different and learn in different ways. I mean, one of the things that really has come together for me this year about ABA is the understanding that it's a creative art.
Oh, yeah.
That there's tools. We talk about this all the time on the show. There's tools, but how you apply those tools with an individual child could be vastly different than how you apply them with another child.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I truly, you know, we as parents, we always say, I want you to see my child as an individual. But sometimes that's hard for us as well. And I see you truly are able to look at all the kids and see the individual and how they learn. And that's a unique talent that you have. Well, that I'm grateful that you have that. And then, you know, the other thing that I want to know is, because you've been doing that, how long have you been doing this now? It's been a while.
Yeah. But 10 years?
You don't want to say?
No, 10 years, I think. A little over 10.
Because you were quite the youngin' the first time that you came to our door. You're still a youngin', but it's been a while, so you've worked with all of these different kids and you've seen them grow. And you know, it's interesting to me to watch Jem interact with you now, to see, because I don't think he remembers much of therapy at all, but he remembers you and thinks of you as like an uncle. But you're, and I've seen other clients that are older run into you in the hallway. You have this legacy now that you run into these individuals in your life. What is that like for you?
You know what? I can't even describe it. I can't. I remember sitting at a conference and one of those clients who was older, was speaking and he mentioned me and said, you know, I love you, thank you for everything you've done for me, you're my brother. And I was just like, you know, don't do it here. But you...
Were you going to go to the ugly cry? Is that what...
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you can't, you know, it's the toughest of the tough, you know, there's no fighting those tears. There's no, I can't describe the just pure joy that I have in seeing that. And even with Jem, you know, I've been out of the country for years, and to come back and see him and just like, it's surreal. You kind of watch and I was observing him and kind of thought, he's not doing any of that other stuff. You always wait to see, is there still something left? But he could talk to me.
There are things, though.
Yeah, there are little things, and the only people that will pick him up are the people that really spent that much time with him. But just seeing him kind of interact with other people, and it's like I said, it's joy beyond anything that I can really describe, and you don't have this sense of pride. Which is really great. Like, I never think, yeah, I did that. Never. And you know, that's always been my thing. And if I could blush, I probably would blush even more when you talk about me that way. But I don't. I just go, I'm really proud of him. I'm really proud of that child.
Probably one of the extra wonderful things about you. But the truth of the matter is that you make a huge difference. You make a huge difference on a daily basis. And yes, the kids have to work too, but the kids don't know how to get there without you.
Yeah.
And the parents don't know how to get there without you. So you make a huge difference. And we're going to take a break, but we're going to come back and talk about how Peter is making a difference all around the world, and how there is the possibility of having Peter work with your child no matter where you are in the world, because he gets on planes now. So we're going to pause for a second, we'll have a short break, and we'll come back and talk about where he's been going and what he's been up to. Stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Teacher has some glasses.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have a card, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And our special, super special guest today is Peter Farag. And I've shared before on the show, he worked intensively with our son in our home. He was the first therapist to ever come to our door. I consider him the autism whisperer, and he is an official member of my family forever and ever, until everyone is dead, because I adore you, and I feel personally like we owe so much to you. I never want to minimize that we had other therapists who were fabulous, but there was something, the connection between you and Jem and our family, that I will adore you forever, and I'll spend the rest of my life repaying you for in little ways. But I am so excited, and I used to sit all the time and say to you, Peter, you're going to change the face of autism, because you already were changing the face of autism then. It was like such a nothing to say because you were already doing it. But I'm so proud of you. I'm going to get all emotional. I'm so proud of you because you are changing the face of autism, and you literally go around the globe to interact with families and kids. It sort of all started, you had worked in Dubai before as a therapist before you came to our house, and you were at our house for a period of time, and you left and went someplace else, came back, and then you went to Dubai for what, 2 years?
Yeah.
And you came back from Dubai last year.
Yes.
But now you're traveling in shorter distances. Tell us some of the places that you're going and what you're doing when you go there.
Right now I'm going to South Africa and Jordan in the Middle East. And I go to South Africa, and I'm there for 8 to 10 days, and I'm actually working on supervision of cases. So continuous training of staff, putting together programs for new clients, taking clients that have transitioned from other supervisors and updating their programming. And I go every 3 months right now to just update the programs, make sure the staff is running programming appropriately, change any behavior plans. But it's important to note that I don't just go every 3 months and then leave and kind of like, okay, I'll see you in 3 months. I was actually on a Skype call this morning, 5 a.m. Get up and you get on Skype because it's their afternoon there. I have a couple coming up this week, one at 3 a.m., one at 1 a.m. But it's, you don't even... it's so funny. It's harder to wake up and go to the gym early than it is to wake up and make those calls, because the gym is just something for myself, but these calls, those kids need me and those therapists need me. But that's actually, it's been such an interesting experience. It's been very different than when I was in Dubai. I went to, like you said, first, it was actually in Abu Dhabi in the Emirates, and I was there for 10 months, and then came back and went to different places in the States and would stay for 6 months at a time, then went to Dubai. And Dubai is kind of when it started, I started thinking more about, I've really enjoyed the therapy for this long, and I've really enjoyed kind of collaborating with other supervisors, but I really want to start kind of taking this on my own, and I want to start traveling to other places and doing this.
Right.
Dubai was kind of the start to that. I was a card person on the ground there, working with staff there at a center, and multiple children. I think the center at the time had around 60 children.
Wow.
And it was great. It was a great experience and a phenomenal opportunity, and it actually helped in the whole travel thing. Living in another country was good for me because it makes it easier for me to go in and out of countries in South Africa and Jordan and wherever else I'll end up going. But it's really great. Got some great staff all over the world. There are therapists all over the world where you just go, this is incredible. I can't, I think back 10 years and I go, where CARD was then, and you look now and it's just like, look at this, the staff here is
They're multiplying.
They're so good. Yeah, exactly. And
the
we
rock
need them
stars
to.
are
We need them to.
multiplying.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing, and I for two sides of this. For the families that are watching, and we talk about how there's more ABA, quality ABA being available in more places around the world, but there isn't always a center. And sometimes there's the workshop model, and sometimes there's the center. When you go, are you considered the workshop model, or are you going to a center there and helping them out in the center?
I'm in South Africa. I'm helping a center.
Okay.
And in Jordan, it's the workshop model.
Okay.
So it's one family, private family, and the goal is for them to hire staff and train the staff. Just I'll provide the training. They do CARD e-learning or whatever it is, and then usually what happens is, okay, they have one therapist trained, and then they bring on another one. That therapist trains that therapist, and then there's continuous training when I come and do Skype observations, or they send me videos, and I can write up notes on how they're managing the problem behavior, how they're running programs, and it's continuous training really as long as I go out there.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just want to make that known to parents that if you're someplace that doesn't have these kinds of things, there are lots of different ways to make this fit together.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe there's an organization that is started there, that's a center, and they want some help getting their staff trained. Peter and other people are doing this as well, are available to do that kinds of things. Or if you're just one family, there's a possibility there. So lots of different things to do. And if you're interested in something like that, then you would want to go to centerforautism.com and click on the services tab and start the conversation. There's an 800 number that when you call, you can talk to Amy Fuentes. And if it seems like it's all my larger family, there's a reason why. Because Amy Fuentes, when you went to Dubai, became our main supervisor. I always get supervisor and coordinator.
Case manager.
Case manager.
Yeah.
That's the phrase I want. So that's another person that I know firsthand that you can be talking to, Amy Fuentes, when you call that 800 number and you tell them Shannon sent you. Because Amy knows exactly who I am, and you can talk to her about my son. But in any case, so that's available to you. I know people think, well, I think sometimes they think of all of this as being someplace very far removed from. And I know that there's a question of funding, but there are multiple ways of working those kinds of things out, and more ways than you can think of. It doesn't hurt to ask what's available, and you may find that where you're calling from, there's 3 other families that are also have been calling, waiting for that 4th or 5th family to make it all cohese and work. So don't hesitate to ask. So once again, centerforautism.com, click on services and call the 800 number. Then we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want you to talk about it from the other side of it, about what it's like as a job, because I know that there are many people who are watching in this economy who are thinking about what they want to do with their lives and how rewarding it is, and what it's like to be a young man traveling the world making a difference.
Yeah.
How cool that is. So stick with us. We're going to be back more with Peter Farag after these messages.
Hi, I'm Bryce Myler, and I'm the Contracts Director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I've been here for about 5 years. CARD has several employees with many years of insurance experience, dealing with insurance, dealing with pre-authorizations, dealing with discovering whether there's coverage or not. So we have more experience than any ABA provider that I've ever come across. So for a prospective client, somebody that may be interested in, ABA therapy and what CARD has to offer, we have a special 800 number, and you call that number. They will talk to you about what we have to offer, how ABA works. He'll ask you for the front and back of your ID card, and then we check to see if you do or do not have coverage. If you have coverage for ABA therapy, we try to do whatever we can to set it up where we can bill for you and you don't have to fight with the insurance company every month to get your claims paid. For California residents, we recently did a series of insurance trainings all over the state, and you can click on the link below to watch pretty much the full presentation. It has a lot of information, how you can get your insurance company to comply with what they're supposed to do, understanding the networks, and many other valuable pieces of information.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and our special guest today is Peter Farag, one of my favorite people on the face of the earth, the first therapist that ever came to our door and really just made a tremendous difference with our child and is making a difference with children around the world. We've been talking about the fact that you're globetrotting right now, that you go lots of different places, and I know there are a lot of young people that are out there that are looking for employment and thinking about what they want to do with their lives, and there are parents out there that are aware of young people who are looking for something to focus on. And I want you to talk to us a little bit about what your background was, how you came to this, because I don't think it's how people would expect.
No.
And what your life is like now, and why this might be a job that people would consider interesting and an adventure and exciting and a worthwhile venture.
Sure, sure. Well, I actually was working at Starbucks at the time.
Glamorous. It started out glamorous.
Yeah, I was I was an actor.
Yes.
I was
and a good one at that.
Trying to be an actor, or a successful actor, I should say. And so where do you work? You work at a Starbucks, you work at a coffee shop, you work at a restaurant. It's flexible, it's easy to go out on auditions. And I was doing that, and it was great. I really did love it, and I enjoyed it. You know, my friends and I, we kind of started our own independent film production company. Used our own money, and kind of it rose and it sank, and it just kind of that's what happens in that field, in that industry, I guess. And I didn't really know. I was struggling with myself and struggling with what I wanted to do. It wasn't an issue of the economy being poor like it is now, but it was an issue of, I just don't know what I'm going to do. I don't like anything else. Right. This is what I love to do. Dr. Grant Pichet was one of my regular customers. And you know, I think my attention to detail was something that actually caught her eye the first time, because I always knew her car, and I knew when it was coming to the parking lot, and I'd have her drink ready. I could probably still remember it if I really sat and thought about it for a minute. And she'd come in, and I started to pick up on kind of her behavior and her moods, and started going, today's not a latte day. She needs something a little different. Today she wants a mocha, or whatever it was. And she, you know, most of the time I was right, and you know, she appreciated it. I remember just feeling really comfortable with her, and one day opened up and told her, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't find anything enjoyable, so I'm going to join the military. And her eyes got really big. She's like, no, you come work for me. And she gave me her card and said the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And I was like, oh, I don't know anything about that. I was very nervous, and I kind of said, oh, she's probably going to give me an office job or something like that. No, she fully had in mind for me to come on board and train, get certified, finish my degree, and do it, you know, do what she thought she saw in me. She really wanted me to do it. For the first... You know what? I still think I'm called Starbucks boy in some circles here. But I know for the first 6 months, people would meet me and they're like, "Oh, you're the Starbucks boy," and I was like, "Yeah, Starbucks boy." I don't know how to respond to that, but you know, I have friends that are in the film industry. I have some that have succeeded. I have some that have failed. And obviously I wouldn't trade it for the failure, but even the ones that have relative success and they're making good money doing it, I love that I'm changing lives on a regular basis and meeting amazing families and amazing children and getting to do this. And I get to travel the world.
Yes.
I mean, you know, all these things that I thought about when I first started, like trying to get into the film industry, the glamour of getting on a plane and flying to, you know, exotic country, and I get to do it.
Yeah.
I absolutely get to do it now, and I love it. I love it. I love different cultures. I love seeing other people's perspectives all over the world, from, you know, even just managing behavior to, you know, politics.
Right.
It's really great. And if someone had asked me 8 years ago, 9 years ago, like, do you think you would be doing this? It's like, no, I probably just gonna go to kids' houses for the rest of my life and be this grandpa coming in like, okay, buddy, time to get to work. But it wasn't. That wasn't the case. I can't imagine, like, when I will bump into somebody that I went to high school with, or something comes up on Facebook and they're like, you're doing what now? It's like, oh, world traveler, how exciting. And I'm like, I gotta go to the office, and it's kind of like, yeah, okay. You know,
you're grown up.
Yeah, I'm grown up. And you know, I say in these really difficult times, when people are searching for something, there's probably no job more rewarding than this. Not in my opinion. I mean, it's rewarding, and every day you kind of go home and go, I really made a change today. I did something great. It's something to look into, and you know what? Anybody can learn this. It takes a person who's very passionate, loves children, you know, few courses, get back in school, get a degree. Anybody can do this. Really, anybody can do it. And I see it all over the world. I see people that have a background in engineering, and they're being hired by these families who are like, hey, he was good with my kid.
Yeah.
And the person, he knows engineering, but he understands all the behavior terms. He's learned it, and he's a phenomenal therapist.
Yeah.
So it's something that's very doable, and just, again, beyond rewarding.
Well, and I want to remind all the parents out there that when we look at therapists, and a lot of times you'll get advice saying, oh, well, go to the psychology department, and that's a good place to start. Of course it is. But sometimes the really amazing rock star therapists didn't start out in the psychology department. That, you know, here we have you, and you were studying acting. Dr. Jonathan Tarbox was studying history. So it's really interesting who really gets excited and passionate about these kinds of things. It's not necessarily who you think might. So as you're looking for volunteers and therapists to train in your home, if that's the route that you're going, allow yourself the creativity to look at your would-be therapists as individuals to see. I think passion is one of the biggest pluses, and you certainly have that. You're so passionate about working with the kids, and it's evident every time I've seen you, and I've seen you work with Jem, and I've seen you work with other kids as well. You're really good at what you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
We have to take a break, and we're going to say goodbye to Peter, because we have to let him get back to work, get back to the business of helping those families and making a difference in all those lives. But I hope we can have you come back on a little more regular basis, maybe even have you Skype in from your far-flung places.
Yeah, that would be great.
It would be awesome for all of us. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
For being on the planet. I was remind your parents how grateful I am that you're on the planet.
I will. Thank you.
All right. We'll take a break, and we'll be back to finish out the show. Stick with us. Happy Halloween. We're here today to show you some really easy, healthy recipes that you can make for Halloween with your children. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is make this lovely cauliflower brain. And the ingredients that we need for this, we need some sort of a platter. We need a cauliflower, and we have an organic cauliflower here. Emily, take it away for us.
We have some natural guacamole, some organic salsa, some potato chips, and then some pull string licorice.
Okay, so those are all the things that we're going to need. Plus we have a very sharp knife and a spoon. So using the knife and preparing the cauliflower can be something you can do beforehand, before you call the children in, depending on their ages and their skill level. All right, so we're going to pull the leaves off of this and put the pieces away. You can compost them if you do that sort of thing, or just throw them away. You want to remove all of the green. This part might be fun actually for the kids. It's a difficult one. I'm just going to slice this part off and pull some more of the green out, because there's no green on the brain. But one key thing here is that we want to slice off just the tip here so that it's going to sit flat like a brain. And this is the point where the kids can be really helpful. If you have it already measured, and that's about 1.5 cups of salsa, whatever size platter you're using, and you can have them dump it right on the plate, and that's a pretty enjoyable part of it. Swish it around. Okay, we can put the cauliflower right in the middle of it. And you can see how easy this is. Super duper easy. Has big impact if you're doing a Halloween party, but it's also having fun with your veggies, something that we want to do with the kids. And we can take the chips. I'm going to let you do that with the licorice while I throw some chips around the plate. And these, by the way, are organic, oven-fried, no-salt chips. You can use whatever you want, but we want to keep this as healthy as possible. And she's laying those laces around so they look like the veins of the brain that has gone bad. You can see it just takes a couple of minutes and you end up with this lovely, delicious, healthy brain for the children to eat. And it looks good on the table too. Tastes good too, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Right now, what we're gonna make are hot dog mummies. These are really fun. You can see our finished ones over here. We only need a few things for this. We need some hot dogs. Right now we're using organic chicken hot dogs that are fully cooked, which is a wonderful thing. We have some mustard. We have some all-natural crescent dough on a plastic sheet that we can roll it out on. We have our rolling pin. I have a little bit of coconut flour, but you can use any kind of flour that you want. This just smells awesome. And we have a sharp knife. So this is the part of the project that we want to be careful around kids. You could use a duller knife or a plastic knife, or do this part yourself when the kids aren't around. But if you open up your refrigerated dough and you roll it out, just throw a little bit of coconut flour onto it so that it doesn't stick as much to the rolling pin, and roll it out so that you can't see the lines anymore. Oh, it smells good, doesn't it? I love the smell of coconut flour. And it bakes really a wonderful scent too into the whole house. Okay, and it doesn't have to be perfect, because the great thing about this recipe is that it's very forgiving. If the dough breaks when you're wrapping up the hot dog, it's okay, because the mummy can have lots of different bandages. All right, we're gonna go and just cut through this dough. And they can be different width strips, it doesn't really matter. And you really could do this with a plastic knife. I want to mention too that if you have dietary considerations and you need something to be gluten-free, I did this the other day for my son with a gluten-free pizza crust mix, and it worked the same. I just had to be really careful. I thought that the key to it all was getting the dough really dry while I was rolling it out and cutting it out, and then wetting it before I wrapped it around the dry hot dogs. Okay, so I'm gonna take one hot dog and Emily's gonna take another, and part of the fun of this is that you want to make like a little hat so that there is a place later on to put eyeballs made out of mustard. So you can wrap it around the head, make like a turban for your mummy, and then start to, and you see it broke. Doesn't matter, because it's dough and it can be a separate bandage. It's not a problem. You just wrap it around. The kids love this because they know they're going to get to eat it later on. It's very healthy and a quick dinner that makes it really fun. You just slather it on. And then we're going to bake it for about 12 to 14 minutes at a 350-degree oven. See, easy. He's got a head. Oh, yours is so much prettier than mine. She's Martha Stewart. Okay, so we're gonna put that into the oven. We don't need to do anything else. And I put it on some parchment paper so that I don't have to use any kind of spray or oil or anything and add ingredients. We're gonna stick it into the oven, and through magic, this is what they look like when they're done. And the other fun element of this is that then you take the mustard and you can give it to the kids for them to put eyes right on, and Emily's gonna do that. Awesome. And if you want bloody mummies, you can include ketchup. So And those are big eyes. The other day when I did this with my son, he wanted to put sliced olives on top of the mustard for eyes. But you can see that these are cute, they're tasty, and really healthy. Those are Mummy hot dogs. And you can write Happy Halloween in mustard if you're Martha Stewart. Very good.
All right, we're gonna move on to some spooky spider cupcakes. So what you're gonna wanna do is bake a box of regular brand cupcake, or they have gluten-free, sugar-free options as well.
Awesome ones, yes.
Which are great. I pre-made these cupcakes standard. Cupcake rules apply. You'll need some eggs and some oil and water. But we've gone ahead and done that already. So what you wanna do is take some chocolate frosting, and we're gonna frost our cupcake with a thin layer. Doesn't need to be too crazy.
Ooh.
Yes.
Smells good too.
Does smell good. And then we brought some blue sprinkles, and these are naturally colored with vegetable juice, correct?
Vegetable juice, blue.
Which is fantastic. And so these are blue. And then we're gonna just sprinkle the top of our cupcake here.
Awesome.
For eyes, I just got some jelly beans here of different colors. You can use M&Ms or whatever you're more comfortable using. And all you wanna do is split your jelly bean in half. So there's your eyeball, Shannon.
Awesome.
I'll have orange eyes on mine. And then you're just going to place them in the front of the cupcake. And then for their little scary legs, we've got some pull and peel Twizzler here, but they also sell natural candy rope, which you can use as well. So then we're just going to pull off our little legs, and the cupcakes are soft enough where you can actually stick the little leg right into it.
And you're just jamming them down?
Just jam them in there.
Alrighty. Ooh, look at that leg.
And this is a good time to teach your kids about bugs and that they have 8 legs.
That's a great thing to add to the lesson. And you know, there's lots of different other things too. Like I have frosting on my hands, and sometimes kids don't like that. It's a flexibility issue. But this is a wonderful way in which to work on those things so that, you know, they can take those skills with them later on. If it's at home and it's a little bit of frosting with you, it's a little bit more reinforcing because it tastes good than if they're on the schoolyard and it's mud and things like that.
And then once you're done, you have your little 8-legged friend.
Mine looks like he needs a haircut, but but they're very fun and they taste good, and the kids will enjoy working on these.
That's right, and they're super cute.
They are. And that's Halloween. Healthy and fast and fun. Welcome back to Autism Live. You know, Halloween is just a few days away, and I know everyone doesn't necessarily celebrate Halloween, but even if you don't celebrate it, boy, there's Halloween stuff around, right? So, you know, we gave you some fun food craft things there to do, and we're talking about anxiety all this week. But we still take time to talk about things that we want to teach our children. If we can pair them together and be using them for the benefit of dealing with education and lowering anxiety, then so much the better, right? Well, we like to give an academic tip from time to time, and I wanted to talk a little bit about teaching colors. It's a great week to be teaching colors, and while we're teaching colors, it can serve as a distraction for some of the things going on. So that if we occupy our children with something, that we can be reinforcing, and it might be something that they just need a little brush up on, or we might actually be actively teaching it. Either way, though, it can serve as a distraction. What am I talking about? So you're going someplace and you're going by a big Halloween display, you're walking around the block on your afternoon walk with your child, and somebody's got something ghoulish on their front lawn, and your child is starting to have a reaction. One thing that we can do is distract them with other things, and colors are a great thing to be doing right now because there's lots of colors out at this time of year. So whether it be decorations or whether it just be things on the trees, or it could be cars passing by. We want to, though, to give our children an opportunity to learn colors in lots of different ways. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But imagine the scenario that you're walking around the block, the child starts to have some anxiety about the huge spider. There's a 30-foot spider on the house around the corner from us. It's disconcerting to me, right? So instead of focusing on that, what I might say to my son is, let's think of all the things, let's look around and see how many things we can come up with that are green, or how many things that we can see that are orange, or how many things that we can see that are red, or pick the color. It serves a distraction, it occupies them, calms them down a little bit. It's a fun little game, and we're building our understanding of colors. When we teach things under the heading of language, there's usually a progression that we can adhere to or let go of, depending on how the child learns. But it's good to understand the framework first of what makes sense if you're teaching it from the ground up and the child has no understanding of the word already. So for instance, if we would do this if we were going to teach shapes, right? But we're going to apply this to colors right now. So one basic thing that we can start with when the child has absolutely no understanding of a word or a term is that we start with matching. Because matching is easy. If you are at all visual and you look at it, even if you don't know the answer of what it is and you don't understand what the word is that's being said, you can still match it. So what we might do with colors is start with some index cards, and you can make these yourself, get some inexpensive index cards and put shapes or circles with different colors. So maybe you put a circle that's red and you make 2 of them. And so what you do to your child, with your child, excuse me, not to your child, you're sitting there at the table or on the floor or on the couch or on their bed, and you put down the one card with the red circle on it, and you hand them the card with the red circle and say, put with same, right? So they're starting to notice that these 2 things are the same. There's a red circle and a red, and then you pick it up and you go, yes, it's red. And if you want to, you could be saying it's a circle, but yes, it's red. You put it with the same. Good job. Reinforce, right? Then eventually what we would do is put some cards up there that weren't red. So we have a red block and we have a green triangle, and we hand the red circles in the middle, and we hand the child the card and say, put with same. The child puts it with the same, and we might have to lead their hand to put it with same. Yes, good, it's the same. They're red. It's red. It's the color red. Great. Well, but we can't stop there, right? There's lots of different ways that we need to understand red. So eventually we're going to work up to sorting. So we put, my son used to have these little, I'm trying to think what they were. They were little guys, little characters that were different colors. They were just, they looked sort of like gummy bears, but they were little guys. And they would put cups up there, and they would put red ones and green ones and yellow ones, and they would say, sort them out. And so he would have to sit there and put all of the ones that were the same color in the cup, and they would go, yes, these are the red ones. This is fabulous. These are the yellow ones. These are the blue ones. We can be working towards all of that, but usually we want to work on one thing at a time. But when you're sorting, there have to be things of different colors, but maybe just to draw the attention to the ones that are red. Yes, these are red. These are red. Then we want to work on receptive understanding of words and the expressive understanding. So receptive is what they hear, right? That they're understanding when you say red what you're talking about. So at that point, what you would do instead of matching is you would say, give me the red one, or put it with red. Whichever way, lots of different ways that you can work on these lessons, but what we're learning is that we're saying red and that they know what we're talking about. Give me the red one. You've got 3 toys up there. Give me the red one. Which one is red? Lots of different ways that you can do that, right? But them understanding when you say red, so important that lots of people are saying red to them, right? Expressive is them saying it. So I'm holding something up and I say, what color is this apple? And I want for the child to be able to say red. Then manding, that they're requesting the thing that's red. Tacting, where they're pointing things out. That so they see a red balloon and they say red balloon, so that we know that they're noticing things in the environment and being able to apply red to that. And then of course we get to interverbals, which is that I can ask you a question about something that isn't present and I didn't use the word red in the conversation and you say red back to me. So I can be sitting there and saying, what color is a fire truck? And the child says to me, red. And I never said red, so I know that they're not just copying copying me, they're saying it as part of early conversation. That these are the ways in which, these are the steps along the way that we can, if it's a child that already understands red in some context, we can see where are the gaps, where aren't we getting it, and fill those things in. But if the child has no concept of red, we're going to want to go through each one of these steps so that they get this global understanding of red. There's some other things, though, that we have to consider along with this, that when we're looking at our materials, we need to make sure that we vary what the materials are. So we want to do some two-dimensional red. That's the red on the card. We want to do some three-dimensional, where it's the little matchbox cars that are, or it's something else. It's a building. It's 3D. We want to do things that are in real life. So I might show pictures of things. I might show miniature versions of things, but I want to make sure that I go out and look at the leaves and say, where are the things that are red? Can you hand me something that's red? Do all of these things. We then want to work on things in memory so that the child doesn't have a visual in front of them, but we say, you know, what color was the heart that we had on Valentine's Day? It was red, so that they're pulling it up in their memory. And we always, always, always want to vary our teaching methods and our materials so that they're not learning it in just way. We don't want to just teach that ducks are yellow, because some ducks are white, right? And yellow can be lots of other things besides ducks, so that if every time you're teaching yellow is with a little rubber ducky, we're really not teaching yellow, right? And we have to get it at that global perspective so that the child understands yellow in all the different forms. That yellow can be light yellow, pale yellow can be deep, almost orange yellow. There's all different kinds of yellows. And when we teach in this way, our children begin to understand colors in the sense and the full 360-degree perspective of language that we want them to. So there is our little tip on teaching colors today. Take it out into the streets and use it as a distraction, use it as a teaching tool, and help your child to begin to understand colors. We're out of time. We are just at the end of the show here. I can't thank you enough for being with us. I want to remind you that there's lots of different ways to get in touch with us. If she's got no time. But there are lots of different ways to get in touch with us here at the show. I hope that you will watch the beginning of the show to see how you can get in touch with us. We're going to have a really exciting show tomorrow. Until then, at 10 a.m. Pacific time, please give your kiddos a hug from us. Bye-bye.